This video is part 1 of the 10 mistakes professional options traders make. And I'm going to get into mistake number 1, which is trading old school options trade structures. Now, the problem with these old school strategies or structures is that they each individually carry directional risk. In other words, they have delta. And if you sell option premium, your goal is to collect theta or capitalize on depreciating assets. So selling an option has the advantage of making money over time as the option becomes worth less and less over time. So the goal is to capture that depreciation. Depreciation is the only known variable, but when you use old school trade structures, you're adding delta or directional risk. This means you're mixing in the unknown risk of direction while you're trying to capture the known profits from theta or depreciation. If you want a clean way to capture theta or depreciation, then you want to eliminate other risks such as directional risk. You want to capture depreciation while your position is not experiencing directional risk. This is why I recommend my 5-step options trading success program, because I can keep directional risk neutral while capitalizing on theta. The 5-step options trading success program uses what I refer to as a modern options trade structure, as opposed to the well-known old school trade structures. The opportunity that provides edge with options is selling option premium. And you can see here, the reason is because it's the difference between the implied volatility and the realized volatility. So this red line here is the implied volatility. It's the volatility is priced in the market that people think is going to happen. It's implied. But in reality, this is the blue line. This is what really happens. So options are based on volatility. Their pricing is based on volatility. So what happens is people believe, or the market believes, that the options are worth more, this red line here, than they really end up being worth when you get all done. And about 83% of the time, approximately, implied, or what people think, the volatility or the price of options is higher than the realized volatility, than the actual volatility, or actually what happens. Like the options, the prices shouldn't have been that high because the price of the underlying doesn't move as much as people think it might. And what happens is the options are overpriced. And so that's why there's an edge to selling premium about 83% of the time. Now, there is no edge with options when trying to pick the direction of an underlying. The best way to expose the edge is to use trade structures that are not dependent on direction, but yet still have that positive theta component, because that positive theta component is what brings out the edge. If you use old school option structures such as iron condors, spreads, and butterflies, they all come with directional risk. Look at this. So if you're looking at the iron condor, look at the directional risk you have here. You see, if the market goes, let's say starting at 119, let's say it goes to 130, right here, you're down money. You see how that curve goes down? So if the market goes down, if Apple goes down to say 105, look at your down money. You're down $100. So no matter what happens, look at that risk when you're using this type of structure, iron condor, for example. Or if you're using a spread, here's a spread. Look at the risk, right? You can see, now this one only has risk to the downside, no risk to the upside, but you're still, 50-50 shot of going higher or lower. So if the market goes lower, you can see, look at how much, this is risky. you've got a lot of directional risk here. You're trying to collect theta most of the time. That's where your edge is. And you're taking a risk with your direction. Look at the butterfly. Similar to the iron condor, you can see you got risk to both sides. You can see if it goes down, you lose money. And if it goes up, you lose money. See the risk? And you're trying to collect theta. So with these types of structures, you need to get direction right to make money. If you're relying on direction so much, why even trade options? You can just trade stocks. So you can see these old school trade structures are inefficient at harvesting the edge that you get with options. So there you have it, mistake number one, trading inefficient trade structures. Next, I'll get into mistake number two. And this mistake is believing that you are diversified because you have multiple options positions on using multiple underlyings. Having different options trade structures on while using multiple underlyings is diversified most of the time, but not all the time. And this method is commonly used to diversify an options portfolio by professional traders. The trade method is supposed to be non-directional, but around 5% of the time, maybe it's 1% of the time, but all it takes is once. And the trade structures become directional and correlated in order to become a major problem. And this correlation happens in what I refer to in my book as crash correlation. This is when all assets become correlated, and this is a very dangerous situation because when this happens, the portfolio is no longer diversified. And when you have a bunch of uncorrelated small positions and the market crashes, they combine to become one large directional short vega position. These correlated positions can take down your portfolio. And this is a weakness that gets exploited with this system, and it creates high drawdowns. If you're in a crash and you're sitting there with 20, 30, 40 positions, and you're trying to manage each one of those positions individually, it's just a nightmare. I mean, it's a very difficult situation to be in. Trying to look at each individual position that needs your full attention at that moment. All of those 30 or 40 different positions need your full attention. Every single little one needs your full attention. This is a situation that you don't want to be in. So mistake number two is thinking that you're diversified by having multiple options positions on using multiple underlyings. The next mistake is similar to mistake number two. Mistake number three is what I call the 95% trap. And I mentioned this earlier about how professionals like to trade multiple options positions using multiple underlyings. This method is a form of capitalizing on the options premium seller's edge. And this trading method is a very popular concept because it does work. Well, it works 95% of the time, and that's the trap. Because what happens 5% of the time when you're trading with this concept? I disagree with this concept because it does not work in one of the four market types. It does not work in a crash market. In a crash market, the underlying stocks become correlated. Let me show you. So you can see that there was a crash market here between March 6, 2020 and March 19th, 2020. What happens in this crash market is that all assets become correlated. Gold down 12%, bonds down 11%, the market down 19%, the tech sector with Apple down 8.8%. You look at the aerospace sector with Boeing down 62%. Look at the retail sector with Target down 5.4%. Look at the airlines. You look at Love, which is down 33%. Look at the oil industry, Occidental, OXY, down 60%. And you have the biotech industry down 6%. And this is just over, what, a 1 to 2 week period? This is called crash correlation. So not only do all the positions become correlated in a crash, but they are all making big moves against you. And what happens is you have your short option premium using this concept, and the volatility rises significantly, and your options that you sold become very high in price. And what ends up happening is you get margin called, and you are forced to liquidate at the worst possible moment. So when your account's down at the lowest level, that's when you've got to get out and take all your losses. So using this strategy, I'm just going to say good luck, because in a market like March 2020, it could wipe out your total portfolio. So there you have it, mistake number 3 professional options traders make, and that is falling into the 95% trap. If you're interested on how to avoid the 14 mistakes that beginner to intermediate options traders make, and how to avoid the 10 mistakes professional options traders make, you can sign up for my free course. There's a link in the description below, or you can sign up for my 5-step options trading success program, and that course also has a link in the description below.